Hi friends, welcome to Books and Crafts. My name is Martyna and welcome to a video that I am so excited to film, and that's going to be tier ranking all of the books that I read so far in 2022. And I have my tier list set, so I guess without further ado, let's start with this. There are going to be mostly fantasy books, some adult, some young adult, but also a little bit of thrillers and some romance books. So yeah, let's get to the list. So here are all of the books that I've read. They are in a random order, and my categories are new favorite, loved it, so not quite a new favorite of the year of all time, but I definitely loved reading this book. Enjoyable, which is like 3.5 stars for me. Then we have forgettable, so these are going to be books where I honestly don't remember much about them, and not for me are books which I either really disliked or I see their value and I see that they could work for other people, for other readers, but they just did not work for me. So let's start. Oh, and we are starting with the book that I believe I finished most recently. This was the first book that I read in August, and this is Daughter of the Forest by Juliet Marillier. So this is a retelling of the Grimm brothers, The Six Swans Tale. This was definitely a new favorite. We have a magical forest setting, we have an incredible, strong, resilient main female character, we have a lot of fairy tale-esque setting and folklore, and this was such a beautiful read, and I would highly recommend, with just a little bit of a trigger warning for sexual assault which happens on page, but other than that, this book was just so beautiful. So the next one is The Alloy of Law by Brandon Sanderson, and this book is the first in his Mistborn era too, but Alloy of Law was definitely an enjoyable read. So we are in the same world as Mistborn Era 1, which starts with the Final Empire, and we have the Elements, which is the magic system in which people ingest metals and they gain different powers and different abilities based on the metals they ingested. And this was very much a fun read. It's definitely tonally completely different than the original trilogy, and while the original trilogy is like an all-time favorite, this not so much. I didn't really like the Western setting. I don't like guns in my fantasy stories. Okay, and the Bone Season. Oh, I have a trouble with this one. Bone Season by Samantha Shannon. I am wondering between loved it and enjoyable, because when I was reading it, I definitely loved it. I could not stop reading it. It was so interesting. The magic system, the characters, the situation that the main character finds herself in completely took me by surprise. But there is something that is preventing me from kind of giving it 5 stars and also from continuing with this series, and that's the romance. There was not much of romance at all in this book, but what there was a little bit disturbing for me. I don't like it. Felt a little bit like a Stockholm syndrome type of situation, and so I think I'm going to put it in enjoyable, top of enjoyable, but I don't know yet if I'm going to continue. If you've read this book, please let me know if the romance is kind of like a very big part of this story, because I would like to continue, but I felt really uncomfortable with this relationship. So the 5th season, new favorite, definitely. This is this post-apocalyptic world in which this event, 5th season, occurs every few hundred years and destroys the earth. This has so many amazing themes, incredible magic system, characters. Highly recommend. Okay, and now we have all of the three Robin Hobb's books from the Farsi trilogy. So we have Assassin's Apprentice, Royal Assassin, and Assassin's Quest. And so I am going to be putting Assassin's Apprentice in Loved It. It wasn't an all-time favorite because there is a little bit of like animal death and violence against animals, which I am very sensitive about, but I loved this book so much. I loved Fitz, I loved the setting, the writing. So in this trilogy we are following Fitz, who is the illegitimate son of the crown prince of this world, the six duchies, and he's taken first by a stable master and then by the royal family, and then he is trained to be a royal assassin. This is a very slow moving story with beautiful writing, with incredibly compelling characters. A Royal Assassin goes to my favorite. It definitely was an all-time favorite. And Assassin's Quest, I think, could also be a favorite, but there were some things that I was not certain about, so I'm going to put it in Loved This. There was a little bit of pacing issues and a little bit of like unnecessary character. Next we have Queen of Blood by Sarah Beth Durst, and this was so fun to read. We again have a forest setting, we have very interesting female characters and interesting magic connected to the forest and the spirits of the forest and controlling them. This was very, very fun. I think I'm going to put it at the top of enjoyable. I read it via audiobook and I don't remember that much about it. I remember that I really did not like the male characters and love interest. Like, again, it's not focused on love, it's definitely not a romance, but I did not like these relationships. There are two and I didn't like either of them, but still I am looking forward to continuing with this series. And then we have Behind Her Eyes by Sarah Pinborough. So this was a thriller and I'm going to say not for me. I enjoyed reading it for the most part. I really like the kind of the marriage aspect, the interesting marital relationships, and it was interesting, but there is something that I really dislike in thriller. I dislike and this type of resolution, which I'm of course not going to say not to spoil it, but because it happened here, it just was not for me. Then Iron Gold by Pierce Brown, I'm going to go to Love It. This is book one in kind of the next series after his Red Rising, which is a sci-fi, sci-fantasy series and a revolution story, rebellion story. I loved it. In Iron Gold, we are 10 years after the events of the original trilogy, and I loved the direction that Pierce Brown took in examining the world after the revolution. And it's not an all-time favorite like some of the original books are, because I did not enjoy some of the perspectives that were here, some of the new perspectives, but yeah, it was definitely a book that I really enjoyed, and I think I'm going to go like that. Then we have The Poppy War. And The Poppy War, again, I think I'm going to put here. This is an Asian-inspired war fantasy in which we are following an anti-hero character, Rin. And it's not an all-time favorite because there is a bit of a jarring tone shift in the middle of this book, so between part 1 and part 2, but I still really enjoyed it. No Exit. Oh, I think this might be my favorite thriller of the year, so I think I'm going to put it here in Loved It. Maybe like maybe like that. So in this we are following our girl Darcy, who is coming home for Christmas, and she gets, like, the weather conditions get worse and worse. She can't drive, and she stops at this, like, a rest stop, something like that, and there are a few people there, and when she goes to the parking lot looking for a cell signal, she sees a little girl in one of the cars in like a cage. It starts there, and she doesn't know who the car belongs to, she doesn't know what to do, she can't call the police because there is no cell signal. Okay, Empire of Silence, and if you guys have seen any of my previous videos, you will know that this is definitely a new favorite. This is a science fiction space opera with elements of fantasy, in which we are following Hadrian, who is the Sun Eater, who is the person who, as he tells us in the beginning of book 1, murdered billions of people, destroyed alien races, and he is now telling his story. It is incredible, with beautiful writing, amazing world building. Highly recommend. Shadow of the Fox. Shadow of the Fox is an Asian-inspired young adult fantasy. This is by Julie Kagawa. And I think I'm going to put it in forgettable. I think my issue with this, I love stories which read like anime, and this was definitely like that, but I think my issue with this was the audiobook. I really did not like the narrator for the main female character. I didn't like the way she was pronouncing Japanese words, and I understand that the narrator is not Japanese, but I still think that maybe she could check the pronunciation before narrating this book. Yeah, I don't remember much about this. Oh, and we have Foundryside. And Foundryside, I don't know why this is here, because I softly DNF'd this book, so I'm going to put it to enjoyable, just for the sake of this tier making. I did enjoy it, but I was definitely in a reading slump, and I wanted to put it away for some time and then maybe come back to it when I feel more like it. So, not going to talk more about this. The Bridal Test. Oh, not for me, definitely not for me. I think I gave this book 3 stars, but the longer it sits with me, the more I just dislike it. I have so much problems with this book, so let me just briefly talk about this. But in this we are following Kai, who is on the autistic spectrum, and Kai is the reason why I gave this book 3 stars and not 1 star, because he is an excellent character. But in this, his mother, they are Vietnamese American, and his mother decides that Kai needs a wife. He's not going to be able to find a wife for himself, so she goes back to Vietnam to find a random girl, bring her to America, make her seduce her son, and marry him. And so this in itself is problematic for me. I really dislike meddling loved ones trope, in which your loved ones kind of think they know better than you what's good for you, and they want to fix you. And yeah, and then the girl Esme, I really did not like her, and especially did not like her fixation on the words "I love you", because for reasons those words "I love you" were really hard for Kai. But this is something I really disagree with. I wholeheartedly believe that actions speak louder than words, and Kai's actions spoke volumes about how he felt about Esme, and yet she was still, "You have to tell me I love you, you have to tell me I love you, or it doesn't mean anything." No, it means a lot. You guys, I don't know, I didn't like it, and yeah, I think I am going to leave it at that. The next one is The Gilded Wolves, and this was such a fun, this is by Roshani Chakshi, and this was such a fun young adult fantasy in which we are following a group of characters, this found family sort of situation where they are at the turn of the century in Paris, and they are just going about solving some things, and the characters are great, the relationships are great, the mystery is and the plot is really good. And also there is a Polish character, Zofia, who I was so happy to see. I don't see Polish characters in fantasy pretty much never, so it was really fun. And then A Good Girl's Guide to Murder, which was a YA thriller, and I'm going to put it in Loved It as well. I had so much fun with it. This is about a girl who, a boy in her school died, and she doesn't believe in the official explanation of this case, and so she decides to investigate it as a part of the school research project. And I would definitely recommend audiobook for this one, because there is a lot of like recordings and phone conversations, and there are really nice sound effects for this one. Dragon Republic is going to go to the top of Loved It, book 2 in the Poppy War. I believe it builds upon and improves upon everything that Poppy War already did great. There's no that much of this strange tone shifts. I really enjoyed this one. Howling Dog. Yeah, Howling Dog is book 2 to the Empire of Silence by Christopher Rocchio. Definitely loved it. I think maybe I will put it here. No, I can't rank these. I can't rank my favorites, so just going to leave it here. It was incredible. It was much wider in scope, and again, I highly recommend this series. Sorcery of Thorns. I really enjoyed it. I think I'm going to put it at the top of enjoyable. This is a book about a girl who was raised in a library, and this is about love for books and libraries and some ancient magical grimoires and a little bit of romance. This was really cute. Blood Air. I think I'm going to go to Forgettable. I don't remember much about this. I think it is a Russian-inspired YA fantasy, and I remember liking it, and I think I would like to continue with the series, but again, I don't remember much about this. The Silvered Serpents is the sequel to The Gilded Wolves, so I'm going to go to enjoyable just because I think the plot got just a little bit too convoluted for me, and this series pulls from so many different mythologies, and it was just a little bit too much of a mess for me, but still I really enjoyed this. And next we have The Matship by Robin Hobb, but I think I'm going to first go with Ship of Magic, which is book 1 in Robin Hobb's Life Ship Traders trilogy, and I am going to go to Loved It, just under Assassin's Apprentice. We have sentient ships, we have trader families, great family dynamics, multi-POV perspectives, and opening up of the world of Robin Hobb's. I really enjoyed it. I think my problem with this series is that I don't really feel very much attached to any of the characters, or at least not in this first one, but I hate a lot of them. Robin Hobb is great with creating hateable characters, and The Matship I enjoyed more. This is the sequel, and yeah, I think I enjoyed it more than book 1. Then we have A Song of Wraiths and Ruin, and I'm going to get it again to Forgettable. This is an African-inspired YA fantasy, and again, I think my problem with this one was the audiobook. I really did not like the voice for the main female character. I think first of all I did not like the character, and for some reason I just did not connect with this story. boyfriend material. Oh, I'm going to get it to new favorite. This is definitely a new favorite comfort read. So this is a male-male romance in which we are following our character Luke, who is kind of like a mess, and I don't know, I related to him so much, and it was so sweet, so cute, a lot of character growth, and definitely recommend if you are looking for a cute romance. Then we have The Atlas 6 by Olivia Blake, which is the Dark Academia book, and I am going to put it at the top of enjoyable. I enjoyed it, but I did not love it, and I think I'm interested in checking out book 2. I think my problem again was that I did not like any of the characters, and some of them were just too pretentious for me with their like, oh, we use people just for fun, everything is a game and people are our pawns. Like, I know that it's probably characteristic for Dark Academia, the unlikable pretentious characters, but yeah, they just got on my nerves, but I still really enjoyed it. Then we have The Bone Shard Daughter, and I definitely loved it. Let's put it here. This is a very interesting adult fantasy story with a little bit of like horror elements, but very, very fun. I have not yet continued with it, but I am looking forward to it. And then we have Legendborn, and I loved this book. I think I'm going to put it here in loved it. So Legendborn is an Arthurian legends inspired young adult fantasy about this girl Bree, who is very smart. She goes to this like college program for talented high school students, and she discovers that there is this secret Arthurian society. There is 2 different magic systems. There is great like social commentary. I really enjoyed it, and the sequel is coming out later this year, so I'm looking forward to it. Mask of Mirrors by the author duo M.A. Carrick. Definitely, oh, can I move it? Definitely goes to my favorites. I think this was one of the first books that I read this year, and I again talked about this in some of my previous videos, but this is a Venetian inspired setting in which we are following Ren, who is a con artist, and we have so much that I loved about this. We have masquerade balls, we have ballroom politics, we have a masked vigilante character, and very, very highly recommend. Not maybe for your first fantasy pick, because it's a little bit more on the complicated side with the magic systems and the world building, but still a fantastic book. Shadow of the Gods by John Gwynne. I'm going to get it to loved it. I think the top hooked. This is a Viking kind of Norse inspired fantasy, very cold. We have huge gods who fought a war and they killed each other off, and then there are other bones left in this world, and the bones kind of have magical powers, and we have a few characters. One of them is Orca, who is a mother character, and I do love to see mother characters in fantasy, so this was really, really great. Then we have Amari and the Night Brothers, and again I think I'm going to get it to loved it. I read it last month. This is a really endearing, beautifully written and imaginative middle grade fantasy. I don't read a lot of middle grade, but I definitely would like to, especially in between some of those more dense stories. Then we have Fireborn. Oh, Fireborn. So Fireborn is a YA fantasy, but for me it definitely read a little bit older. This is inspired by Russian Revolution, and we have 2 characters, one who before the revolution was in the lowest social class, and the other who was in the highest social class, and now after the revolution the class system is no more, and they there are dragons, they are trying to navigate the politics of this world. It's very political, it's amazing. I read it in one day, which usually does not happen for me, so it definitely deserves to be in my favorites like that. And I think, yes, we also have Flamefall, which is the sequel, and it goes to a new favorite as well. I just loved this. Third book is coming out very soon, and yeah, just please read it. It was so great, even for older readers. Then we have Shipped, and Shipped is like a summary romance novel. It wasn't anything special for me, but it happens on like a cruise in, I believe, Galapagos, so it's definitely a really good summary read and I enjoyed it a lot. Then we have The Maid, and The Maid is a cozy mystery in which we are following Molly the maid, who is on the autism spectrum, and because she can't understand some of the social cues, she gets involved in this murder case in the hotel where she works in, and it was like the top of enjoyable, or maybe the bottom of loved it. I had so much fun with it, but I am not convinced that the representation of autism, like I am not on the spectrum, but still I'm not convinced that it was done really great. So To Serve with Love, it was another romance novel, and this one is forgettable. I don't even remember what this one was about, so yeah. The Bone Shard. Oh, again, why did I put another book that I did not yet read here? Okay, let's ignore this one. The Bone Shard Emperor is the sequel to The Bone Shard Daughter. I definitely am planning to read it soon. I'm not sure what it's doing here. You can clearly tell, I believe, that this is my first time doing a video like that. So then Jade Fire Gold is another, I believe, South Asian inspired young adult fantasy. I'm going to put it in forgettable again. I enjoyed it. I don't remember much about it. So then we have The Love Hypothesis, and this is so popular, but I didn't really like it, so I'm going to I don't know, I think maybe the lowest of the enjoyable tier, because I read it, like I enjoyed it while reading it, but then when I thought about it, I had a lot of problems with this. I especially did not like the representation of demisexuality, so the main character is hinted at being demisexual, and I did not like the way it was handled, with her being like, oh, my breast, something's wrong with my brain, I'm not normal. I just did not like it. Then we have Liar's Knot, and Liar's Knot is the sequel to The Mask of Mirrors, and so it definitely belongs to new favorites. Both of these I gave 5 stars. I loved them. I can't wait to reread them and can't wait for book 3. Fevered Star, I'm going to go to the top of enjoyable, and then we have the Paris Apartment, which I'm going to maybe put here. Enjoyable thriller by Lucy Foley, in which we are following this girl whose brother goes missing, and she gets to Paris, to the apartment that he is renting, and is kind of trying to find out what happened to him. And we have all of these residents of this building. This is a very fancy building. We see all of the connections between the characters, and yeah, very enjoyable. Not a new favorite, but again, I would recommend an audiobook for this one as well. And The Blood Trials, I'm so sad, but I'm going to have to go to forgettable. I don't know why I remember so little about this book. This is like a sci-fi dystopian story, kind of pitched for the fans of Red Rising, which I am a fan of, but for some reason I just don't remember much about this story. And then we have The Daughter of the Moon Goddess, which I talked about in my latest wrap-up video from July. And this is a Chinese-inspired story, which it read like a fairy tale, and it was so beautiful and visual, and I loved the story and the character, and so it definitely gets a place in here. So maybe like this, something like that. So definitely a new favorite. Oh, and then we have Finding Me, the memoir by Viola Davis. This was a heartbreaking read. This kind of elevated in my mind Viola Davis from one of my favorite actresses to one of my favorite people. It's very difficult to read, but it was also incredible and hopeful and beautiful. It made me cry a lot. It definitely deserves a place in my favorites, but I would say proceed with caution and take care of yourself while reading this, and trigger warnings for extreme child negligence and child abuse and sexual abuse and poverty, and yeah, very difficult, but also just incredibly written. And the audiobook is narrated by Viola Davis herself, so highly recommend. Oh, and then we have Book Lovers by Emily Henry, and I'm going to go to put it in Loved It. I definitely enjoy Emily Henry's books. So Book Lovers is following Nora, who is a literary agent, and her sister takes her to the small town for a trip. I enjoyed the love interest Charlie, who is an editor. I enjoyed a lot about this book. It's not an all-time favorite just because this again has this meddling loved one trope, which I hate so much, where Nora's sister thinks she knows better about what Nora needs and what she should do in her life. Then we have Half a Soul, and I loved it too. This is a Regency romance with fairies, and it was so sweet. I'm going to talk more about it in my August wrap-up because I just recently finished reading it. And then we have Joe Abercrombie's The Blade Itself and Before They Are Hanged, and I loved both of these. I think I'm going to put The Blade Itself here, and the second book maybe here, maybe here. And these are my first books that I read by Joe Abercrombie, first two books in his First Law series. This is a grimdark fantasy, but definitely with humor, with unforgettable characters, great sarcastic writing, and just very fun, much more fun than I thought they would be. And yeah, so this is all of the books that I read so far in 2022, and I have so many new favorites. I think I'm going to leave it like that. I think I am going to have a little bit of a problem towards the end of the year when I want to create like the top 10 reads of 2022 list, but so far I'm very happy with it. So yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I hope you had fun ranking these with me. Please let me know what are some of your new favorite reads from 2022 so far. I would love to hear from you because I am always looking for great books recommendations. And yeah, thank you so much for watching. Please subscribe to my channel and like this video if you enjoyed it and if you would like to see more. And I will see you very soon in the next one. Bye guys!